Welcome to Rajendra Tandon videos. Today's video is one of the two dealing with the downfall of Hiranyakashipu, father of Bhakt Prahlad, at the hands of Vishnu, coming as Nrisinha, an avatar which was lion as well as a human being. The story has been told in Srimad Bhagavatam. It's a story which has delighted millions and millions of readers and listeners ever since it was written. It is ironic that even sons born to a rishi turn into Rakshasas. It happened in the case of two sons born to Rishi Kashyap and his wife Diti. The younger one, Hiranyaksha, was annihilated by Vishnu in his Varaha incarnation. Through training, both the sons of Kashyap Rishi could have become Devatas. But early in their life, they lost their way. While there was no dearth of learning, an uncontrollable longing for power and pelf turned them into demons, intolerant of all that was good. Here is a statement of fact about life. Nobody is born evil. It is the later influences which change people and their habits. When Hiranyaksha was killed at the hands of Varaha, Hiranyakashipu flew into a rage. His wrath was unbearable. He trembled with anger. Repeatedly he ground his teeth and bit his lips. His frightening eyes emitted fire. Carrying a trishul, Hiranyakashipu strode up and down in the assembly hall where his courtiers and kith and kin were gathered. Addressing them, he said, "Helped by Vishnu, my petty enemies have murdered my beloved brother Hiranyaksha. Once upon a time, Vishnu was pure and impartial. He is no longer impartial, just or fair. Like a petulant child, he takes sides with whosoever pampers him. He assumes many forms to kill our dear ones and companions. He is a threat to our survival. Vishnu has lost his balance of mind. I shall pierce him with my trishul, cut his body into pieces and feed it to the dogs." Strong words. "With his blood, I shall perform the last rites of my brother. That will be my revenge. It will restore my peace of mind." Like the branches of a tree that wither when its roots have been severed, the Devatas will starve to death when Vishnu, the magician and the source of their strength, has been vanquished and destroyed. So acclaimed Hiranyakashipu. Meanwhile, he told his followers, "You travel to the earth where the Brahmins and the Kshatriyas are breeding like frogs. Kill all of them. Kill anyone engaged in charity, self-study, vrata and tapasya. Destroy the crops. Make the earth barren." The Rakshasas faithfully carried out Hiranyakashipu's orders. They devastated towns, villages, playgrounds, stables for cows, gardens, walks, swimming pools, and centers of trade. They axed flowering trees and free fruit-laden orchards. They did not spare bridges, moats, or other defenses. While this dance of destruction was going on, Hiranyakashipu consoled his mother and sister-in-law and his brothers' sons, and he gave them thoughtful, spiritual advice. He said, "Do not shed tears at Hiranyaksha's death. For a warrior, there is nothing more desirable than a death on the battlefield. Like wayfarers assembling momentarily by a watering hole, we too have a momentary association. Our soul is eternal, indestructible, pure, unattached, omniscient, and omnipresent. It is not a part of the body that is destroyed in death. Do not grieve over the death of Hiranyakashipu. It is our ignorance that leads us to grieve for those who have departed. Very wise words, but his deeds were otherwise. He continued, Yamaraj had once told me that anyone who takes birth has to die. Why then grieve over anyone's death? We are mere toys in the hands of God. Playfully, He makes and unmakes us. The body about which you grieve is lying in front of you. However, the power that impelled it to think, to speak, or to see has deserted it. It was never visible. It is not visible today. Why then grieve over its departure? That showed that the man was learned, a thinker, a philosopher, but despicable deeds did he perform. He was, after all, the son of a rishi. Realizing that he might meet the same fate as his brother, he decided to pray to Brahma to grant him immortality. He was determined to be invincible, immortal, young forever, an unchallenged monarch of the world, and a king that no enemy could win against. Mark something here, the quality of the storytelling. It is highly literary, greatly absorbing. Hiranyakashipu shifted to an ashram situated in a valley of the Mandarachal mountain. He engaged in a harsh and ruthless tapasya. He stood on one toe looking at the heavens. His one hand was raised in supplication. His hair grew long and shone like sun's rays at the time of pralaya. The devatas hid in Swargalok out of fear. They could only guess at the evil intentions of their Rakshasa step-brother. Rishi Kashyap had lost control over his wayward son. Hiranyakashipu stood on one toe in penance for years. Such was the intensity of the tapasya that his head emitted smoke and fire that burnt everything nearby like a volcano. The rivers and oceans came to a boil. The earth experienced quakes. The sky witnessed falling stars and meteors. When the heat of his penance singed the devatas, they ran to Brahma in fright. "O Father," they prayed, "Hiranyakashipu has embarked upon a course of destruction of the world order established by you. He is confident of changing the dharma of virtue and sin with the power of his tapasya. Ultimately, he wants to challenge Vishnu so that we never get any redress against the forces of evil. You are the master of the universe, Father. Help us by getting rid of this evil giant." The story continues. Brahma, accompanied by Bhrigu, Daksha and other Prajapatis, went to Hiranyakashipu's ashrama. At first, he could not see anyone. Hiranyakashipu's body had been covered by mud, grass and bamboo stalks. White ants had bored holes in the mound of earth around his body. They had eaten into his flesh, muscles, marrow and blood. Yet he emanated intense heat to torment the entire universe, like the sun hidden behind the clouds. An amazed Brahma laughed and called the tapasvi, "My son, I have come to bless you. You have pleased me with your penance. Ask without hesitation. I shall grant any boon. I admire your determination. White ants have eaten into your body, yet your soul resides in your skeleton. It has not deserted you. There was never a rishi who had performed such rough penance as you have done. For 100 years you have been meditating without even a sip of water. Ask, and your wish shall be granted. My visit cannot go waste. Like flames bursting out of a mound of firewood, Kashyap's son stood up hale, whole and hearty. When Brahma poured heavenly water from his kamandalu over the ant-eaten skeleton. All his limbs were intact. His muscles had regained their shape and strength. He looked fit like an athlete. His senses had revived. He could think. His lips were tough like stone, and they reflected the aura of burnished gold. What a description! Hiranyakashipu prostrated in front of Brahma, riding a swan in the sky to acknowledge his superiority. He offered a suitable prayer, then said, I bow to you, Bhagwan, in all humility. I am aware that no other god can bless me like you. Grant me a boon that I cannot be killed by any of your creations, whether man or beast, living or dead, devata or daitya, reptiles, birds or animals. I shall be immune to death in the morning, noon, evening or night. I shall not be killed inside the palace or outside. None of your creatures will kill me with any weapon in the sky or on the land. Grant me that I shall be invincible in battle. I shall be the monarch of the universe. Grant me the boon to worship and hold you in great respect. Grant me the inexhaustible power and glory of the tapasvis and yogis. Brahma replied, You have asked for unusual boons. However, I shall grant them to you. Becoming indestructible as a consequence of the boons granted by Brahma, Hiranyakashipu lost his head. His body radiated the luster of gold. His sinews filled up. He went on to conquer the universe. He built magnificent palaces for his use. The divine architect Vishwakarma had no choice but to do his bidding. He ousted Indra and started living in his palace. He shifted to Swargalok and enjoyed the pleasures of strolling in Nandanvana. His palace was enriched by lovely artifacts from the three worlds. Its staircases were made of coral, the walls of crystal and pillars of lapis lazuli. The chairs were studded with rubies. Colorful canopies were spread everywhere. The bed sheets glistened like white froth on milk. Mark the simile. Bed sheets glistened like white froth on milk. Strings of pearls surrounded the beds. In the palaces of Hiranyakashipu, apsaras, beautiful in every limb, moved around on tiles inlaid with colorful stones. Their tinkling anklets produced the music of twittering swans. Now and then, they stopped and admired their own loveliness in the large mirrors fixed on the walls. Hiranyakashipu imbibed strongly fermented liquor that had an overpowering fragrance. This caused his eyes to be bloodshot all the time. His pride made him raise his eyebrows often. He became an epicenter of tapasya, yoga, physical and mental strength, a heady mixture of power under any circumstances. All the devatas except Brahma, Vishnu and Mahesh waited on him. They brought him presents. When he sat on his throne in the court, the Gandharvas, the Kinnars, the Rishis, the Vidyadharas and the Apsaras sang his encomiums. The Apsaras presented sensuous dances. Hiranyakashipu asserted himself even when there was no need. He snatched the ahuti offered in yagyas performed by the rich. He made the earth produce grain without sowing. The heavens supplied him with whatever he desired. The skies presented amazing spectacles to entertain. The oceans of milk, salt, water, ghee, curds, sugar, cane juice, of liquor and sweet water, accompanied by their wives, riding the rising tides, came to offer him gems of many a hue. The mountains opened their valleys for Hiranyakashipu to organize festivals and games. The trees grew unseasonal fruit for his pleasure and consumption. Soon the king became a slave to his senses. He collected hundreds of women in his harem. He violated every moral code. Brahma's boon had made him impervious to any sane advice that was offered. He wanted to avenge his brother's death. The Devatas approached Vishnu and requested him to do something to tame this beast. Bhagwan asked them to wait a bit till Hiranyakashipu maltreated his peace-loving and enlightened son, Prahlad. In spite of his being blessed with Brahma's boon, I shall teach him a lesson, assured the Almighty Vishnu. The remaining part of the story will be taken up in the video next week. Thank you for visiting this site. Jai Krishna. Jai Krishna. Krishna Krishna Hare Hare.